Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hope everyone is well today. We're going to get started in 3 minutes. I'm going to get Facebook together and all of that good stuff.
Hello, hello.
Good evening. I'm actually a little geeked excited about today's conversation, everybody. So
I like when you get excited.
I'm a little geeky excited.
That's awesome. Hello, Richard. We had a very.
I think the reason for it is because I love like super practical stuff.
And yeah, I was about to say it's very tactical, but we had
this is very tactical. Yes.
Conversation in the book club chat. It was really, really good on Monday. So if you didn't watch it, you have to, because it was again practical, very much combining all the things that we talk about. It's very good. He said, geeks are awesome. I know. We are.
Geeks, yes. There's this show that I used to like called Leverage, and the guy would say, Age of the Geek, baby. So yes, look, the Revenge of the Nerds, the Age of the Geek, it's like our century. So yes.
Hey y'all, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
So we're going to get started in 2 minutes, everybody. So get yourself, I've got my agua here. I got to finish my water. You got some tea, you got some liquor, wine, whatever it is you drink. Let us know. We're going to do a little bit of put your city and state in the chat also so we can recognize you. We want to know where people are coming from this evening. And we've got a great topic this evening with regards to the future of work. So got Bronx in here. We've got Virginia. I know we have 2 more Virginias here in the Maryland.
Yes.
So yeah, everybody, let us know where you're coming from. And I will precursor say that we have 3 articles for this evening. We'll see if we'll get through all 3. And one of them I read it, and so I don't really read the articles before I send it to the officers. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is the topic. Here's some articles I found about it. So today I'm reading the articles, and one of the articles I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. So which is great, because then we can have a real conversation about people's opinions and what you agree with and what you don't agree with, etc. So I see you got Florida in the house, you got Tennessee, Baltimore. So hello, everybody. Welcome this evening. Welcome. What's Bitcoin doing these days? Does anybody know? Is it still around 11?
As you see, I have my Satoshi is Black shirt on today.
Ah.
Doing it. We're representing today.
Yeah, we did good. I mean, yesterday it's down today. Yesterday, I think it went up to 12,000.
Okay, so it's 11.4. But to me, that's pretty stable. Anywhere between like 11 and 12 to me is kind of stable right now. So we're just saying 11,400. Okay. Does anybody believe it's going to get up to 50,000 or 200,000? I heard the Winklevoss, isn't that their name? Twins, think it's going to get to like 200,000 or 500,000. They had some crazy number out there.
No, they said 500,000.
Yeah, I think they said 500,000. I was like, that's interesting. I mean, look, it worked for me. It got up that high. We'll see. Yeah.
For the record, I definitely see. For the record, I definitely see us crossing 6 figures. Like I really do. I see that happening. When that happens, I don't know. What time?
Who knows what'll happen? It's one of those things where you just have to dollar cost average if possible, and put your stuff on cold storage if possible. So
that's right.
If you think it's gonna have that kind of effect, and don't tell your greedy relatives that Too much. Say I own 0.00001 of a Bitcoin. Don't tell them you like saved it over time and you actually own 2.
You're a holder. Just ignorance is bliss.
It is. Yes.
So Jeff put the rocket ships in there too.
Yes, I see Jeff here. So, and Richard is saying tonight is right up his alley because he's an HR talent acquisition specialist. So, yeah, so this is all about the future of work tonight. We're going to get started. So, if it's Wednesday, it's Blockchain Day. So, welcome to Blockchain Chat. I'm Cherie, and this is Black Blockchain Consultants. Here, we're all about the business of blockchain. So, what does that mean? If you want to get a blockchain job, you want to start a blockchain-based business, you want to invest in the blockchain, whether you're investing time or money in a project, and ultimately, this is going to be a $3.1 trillion industry. I'm actually calling it for more than 3.1 trillion based on what's happening with COVID. But that was a number that was stated a year ago, so we're going to stick with that for now. And we just want our piece of the pie. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you think you have to code in order to be a part of blockchain and the network, you are also wrong, because none of us are coders. We are business specialists, professionals, etc. And we're looking to participate in the blockchain. So Eric, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Eric Spence, President of Blockchain Consortium International. Titan of tokenization, love tokenization, the application of blockchain, which allows you to make a digital representation of any kind of asset. I think that's going to be transformative. I think we see what's happening in the DeFi space, and looking forward, I'm just excited to see all of the myriad of applications that are going to be created going forward.
Yeah. So in the fall, we definitely want to feature you, Eric, in terms of a tokenization panel discussion. You can find some people that you want to bring on for blockchain chat, because how big is tokenization expected to get? At one point I heard it's going to be like $24 trillion a year put through the system or something like that.
Yeah, now here's the thing. Now, theoretically, it could be even larger than that, because of the fact of, when I say any asset, I'm talking about any asset. And I think the global real estate market, what is that, $200 trillion? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then, I know that we did a blockchain chat when we had Alistair on. And remember, Alistair's idea was that he believed in Americoin, which would be the public lands of the United States would be tokenized, and the revenue from that would be dispersed to all of the citizens of the United States itself. So, and
that libertarian him.
Yeah, I never thought about that. So, but once again, see, and here's the thing: we're not, when you talk about tokenization, you're not just talking about physical assets, things that we can touch and smell and feel and that sort of thing. I mean, we're talking about revenue streams, talking about debt. We're talking about multiple ways, loans, mortgages, all of those sort of things, royalty streams, anything you can imagine has the possibility to be a digital representation represented by a token and traded and owned on the blockchain. So that's why, I just say that it has, the exponential, the ceiling of that is as far as that could possibly go.
Talisha, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Talisha Shine. I am the Vice President of Blockchain Consortium International, also an Inner Circle member, founding member as well. And I'm the tech-y part of the technical discussion. So I don't code as much as I used to, but I do know that aspect of it. And again, it's very important, I think, to get these kind of conversations, specifically tonight, is to get us to really look at it from a totally different perspective, and also from a 360. I think we kind of get myopic in looking at things like, okay, let's try this. Where do we kind of put ourselves into that place? But there's many more on-ramps that I think we'll get to in this conversation that'll really kind of get people to think like, oh, that's possible, because that's what we really need at this point. So I'm really interested in what we bring up this evening.
Yeah, so this evening is going to be fun. And whether or not you're in HR or you're going to be looking for a job in the future, or even with the gig economy, there's an article that I pulled up that's all about gig workers and how blockchain could help gig workers in the future. There's also another article that is talking about the future of work and the decentralization of work and workforces. So, this is something where we're really kind of digging into the future. And all the articles agree that the future is closer than we think. COVID has totally disrupted things so much that people are now, C-suites are now looking at real estate and other things and asking themselves, well, do we really need this? The other thing is that, so I've been working from home for, I guess close to 2 years now. Before then, I did work in an office suite. I've been in business for myself for over a decade. And, my mom and I live on this property. And now I was thinking before COVID, I was thinking that I would go and get another office suite because I miss going into an office. And now because of COVID, we've all of a sudden discovered the Zoom rooms and the little pods, the little office pods that people are putting in their backyards and things like that. So we've started looking at an office pod for me, So so the future of work, I think there's going to be a lot of money made, whether it's blockchain or not. There's going to be a lot of money made in how work is done in the future, how people are found, how people are connected to each other, the productivity of workers. Now you're starting to see workers being able to, like, you can have an employee that lives in Bali or Ghana or someplace like that, and they're just as productive as people who live in San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera. So tonight is going to be that conversation and how blockchain is going to play into it. So I hope everybody is ready for the ride. I do want to say two things, though I forgot. Number one is, if you're watching the replay of this on YouTube, please like and please subscribe to our channel because we're trying to get our numbers up. And number two, if you're not a member, then please join Black Blockchain Consultants. Check out the membership. You can go to blackblockchainconsultants.com and check us out. So I've been forgetting to make those two announcements. Okay, then. So let's get started with the first article. So this is an article from Forbes, and I guess I could have seen if I was able to, I don't know how to make it bigger. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this is about blockchain's role in reshaping the future of work. So, of course, we know that millions of people around the world are embarking on the daunting task of job hunting, which is even more challenging for both candidates and recruiters in today's world of remote work. Let's face it, finding the right person for the job is hard enough, but verifying their credentials to finalize a hire can be a nightmare. Personal references can often be unreachable or unresponsive. Past roles can be unverifiable due to the companies being defunct or acquired. And credentials from other countries are incredibly hard to validate. It makes it difficult for both the employer to make a hire and candidates to land a job. Blockchain tech can make a huge difference, according to this contributor. In essence, acting as a trusted source of truth for employers and delivering a greater sense of data security for employees' records is possible. Blockchain has an incredible opportunity in the workplace to help validate data about career history, educational background, and accreditations. The author met virtually with Dor Gurovich, CEO of the Velocity Network Foundation, a nonprofit established by Velocity Career Labs, a developer of blockchain tech that underlies a global network of verifiable education and career credentials, known as the Internet of Careers. And they got that trademark too. I like that though. The Internet of Careers. So I think it's Richard was saying he's in the business. So you gotta check that one out. Founding members of the foundation include tech companies, including Oracle, background screening companies, professional service providers, and ed tech specialists. So they discussed several things. While organizations have made progress in their ability to manage employee data, many employees now have multiple employers or are taking gig assignments on the side. This makes it difficult for a single employer to have a holistic picture needed to drive personalized solutions and derive value through analytics. Most of this career data is scattered across multiple platforms and databases. So I have to stop here because when I first read about the person having the gig on the side, I thought for all of my people working in corporate, why would I want my boss to know that I'm doing something on the side? I'm like, I don't know, that may come back to bite some of us in,
It
the
actually
rear.
is, though. If this is, I'll talk about that later, but that
Okay.
actually is a good thing.
It is a good, okay, so let's talk about it then. So the network instead proposes a system where individuals use a designated credential wallet app to connect with credential issuers, i.e. their employers, schools, trade associations, etc., to claim their career-related records. Those credentials are issued and signed by the issuing entity, and then the individual can store their credentials on a local device. For me, this is really good because hurricanes and things like that, I'm from the South originally, a lot of records were destroyed. Birth certificates and things like that were destroyed in Katrina. And like we've had previous hurricanes, as well. So how many people don't have their credentials if they went to college or, their birth certificates or things like that, if they weren't digitized. So the issuer generates a cryptographic proof of validity that is stored on the blockchain run by the Velocity network. At that point, individuals can choose whether to share credentials with the third party, how the credentials may be used by others, and for how long. Once a prospective employer or other party is authorized to access the blockchain, they can verify the credentials. The foundation's challenge is to make sure that the keepers of various pieces of history, universities, technical organizations, training companies, employers, all agree to fix this data problem. So basically, you have to have a lot of buy-in for this to work. How the pandemic exacerbates hiring snafus. So when you need to hire healthcare workers and first responders to fill the ranks of sick workers, the stakes are high, and we can all agree with that. Also for long-haul truck drivers, there are 1.6 million of them in the US, and delayed credentials can cause lost work, lost income, and burdens on the supply chain. So people need jobs filled faster, and a truly international career network utilizing a blockchain could also enable a set of references that could help refugees and immigrants who now typically must settle for menial jobs to get better jobs and apply their skills in a new country. Also, data on LinkedIn and other resume repositories are entirely self-reported, unchecked, and likely to include inaccuracies. The emergence of more accurate and up-to-date data could not only help employers vet candidates more easily, but also identify possible recruits more effectively. If you are an individual, you can control your career data and who can see it. If you work for a hiring organization, you'll be able to find qualified candidates faster. And you can apply analytics and AI to employee data to more accurately match individuals to suitable roles, recommend learning and development paths, and design talent management activities. So that is the end of the article. There was a lot of good stuff in there, though. I'll open it up.
I think this is a prime aspect. They talked about several things, and we always talk about credentialing being a necessary thing for jobs in the sense of making sure people have the right credentials, specifically in healthcare. Anytime you have, again, we saw this very clearly, individuals, healthcare professionals performing duties outside of their state, they have to be credentialed. So anytime you have a disaster, a natural emergency, something of that nature, you have to credential people from outside of the state typically, because you're pulling from all different resources, not all coming from the same place. We have this issue all the time where there's a surplus of nurses that are just kind of on standby, and there's already a shortage of them in general. And now to have them basically bottlenecked in this credential snafu is like, they're ready. Like, we deployed a large portion of nurses to New York when COVID hit really bad, because that was the state that needed our attention. And so they deployed a large portion of them, but they still, when they hit the ground, they weren't allowed to start working because they were waiting for the credentialing for the New York State. That becomes a real strong issue. Like, you just have all these people here waiting, and they're standing there and they're not allowed to perform their job. That becomes really kind of, it just is ridiculous most of the time. And we've seen this over and over with hurricane seasons, you have all these medical professionals, fire departments, all of these people, but they all have to be credentialed to do what they do everywhere else in that particular place. So that's a really important thing. As for the employment, opening up to the gig economy and letting your employer, if you're in corporate, to see that you have other things. The intrapreneur is what it's called, is a very hot commodity at this point. Companies are looking for people who have that breadth of knowledge to be able to actually leverage them within their own corporate environment. So they're looking for people who are kind of a little more gung-ho, doing what they need to do, can think outside the box, have different experiences, because then they can tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we're thinking about this, and they have direct access to you. I'm an entrepreneur for my company, and it happens all the time. I'm asked to do a whole array of things because they know very clearly what I'm doing. They're absolutely aware of it. They've seen the white paper that I've developed for my company. They are all in, and they go, okay, we'll see that. That's great. We'll talk about it. They hit me up every couple of months, but when they want to do certain maneuvers in the blockchain space specifically, I'm a person that they come to, and they go, hey, what's the latest and greatest? Or how does this work? And usually it's just one-off questions, but sometimes it's let's come to this meeting and talk about it. And I'm like, okay, who are you? I don't even know where you fit in the company, but that's what happens. And it literally, I have a card on our intranet system that specifically says all my blockchain credentials, what I'm doing, all the jobs that I've had, that I'm a member of this group. And that's why people reach out to me and find that information really helpful.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying that would enable somebody to more easily get a promotion, maybe.
Yes, it helps you move
in the raise. It helps you move up. It helps you move to different departments, things like that, versus traditionally that would be a lot harder perhaps. So.
Yeah, and if you have a good company, like I work for a company that definitely, I would say, promotes your growth as a person, not just as an employee. So again, I think that all goes into that. If you're happy doing something else that happens to require some outside service, that they're more than likely to say, hey, that's great, as long as you're able to still perform your job. And how does it fit? And how can we even help you? Like, we've developed a whole internal protocol for entrepreneurship just for that purpose. Like, what resources could we do as an individual company to help you survive and thrive in the things that you're doing? So I think it's really good for retention, for employee retention rates, because I always call my job my first investor. It pays the bills. It has to be the thing that I do while I'm doing anything else. And I really don't have any need to leave. I'm not kind of rushing to like, oh, I got to get out of this job. The job is doing exactly what it needs to do. And they give me the time. When I say, hey, I need to do something for my business, they say, okay, go ahead and do it. Good luck.
So I have a question, because I haven't been in corporate America since 2006, 2007. This is for everyone in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if your experience is like Talisha, where you have freedom within your job. Put a 2 in the chat if it's not. It'll just be between you, me, and the Zoom chat. I'm very curious. Because my understanding is that a lot more companies are not that way. So I'm curious. So put a 1 in the chat if you have more freedom like Talisha. I'm seeing a 1 right now. Put a 2 in the chat if no, you don't have the freedom. So somebody's saying 3. Okay. I see a couple of 2s here.
Eric just always wants to be different.
He's going to have to potentially explain. It is on the internet, though. Somebody's saying 1.5. Okay. All right. Another 1.5. Okay. All right. So, I guess what we're saying is it really does depend on your employer and the setup that you have. Sometimes it could depend on the industry that you're in as well, if they feel like you are a potential threat to them, if you're too entrepreneurial, if you're too much of a go-getter. So Eric, I'm curious, what did you think about that article, any aspect of that article that we read?
No, like my main thing when I was thinking about it was, what kind of effect do you think that will have? This will have on hiring itself.
Oh, huge effect. If they do it the way that, if it's done the way that they're believing it can be. It's not just a credentialing, it's also getting people hired faster. It's the ability to be able to find people more effectively. They were talking about refugees coming and immigrants coming and getting menial jobs. And now if it's an international platform, and that person was a doctor, well, probably not a doctor, that's probably not an accountant or something like that in another land, could they move their credentials over to the United States or to Europe or someplace like that? I personally think that there could be cost savings to employers. I also believe that, and this is a good point for us within Black Blockchain Consultants, it opens up the globe a lot more with regards to talent, which means that we in the first world have to be extra special or do something that others can't do. So then you have to be more strategic about your career decisions. And when we talk about Black people and our wealth going to zero, these are some of the decisions that you'll have to make for your kids as well, and making sure that they're set up where 2050 they still have a choice. So go ahead, Eric.
See, I'm listening to you, and that sounds very positive.
I do sound positive? Okay.
No, you did. Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to ascertain. Is this going to be just overwhelmingly positive, or is it going to potentially have a negative or deleterious effect?
So I had the negative effect of the person, your employer, knowing you have a side gig, because you may not want your employer to know. That's why I ask people the question of, do you want, would your employer be open to knowing that you had a side gig, a side hustle, or even a part-time job? Like, there are a lot of people who don't want their employers to know that.
Well, here's the thing too about that. And Talisha, I want to hear your thoughts on it, because I know you had some comments on it. But one of the things that's happened, especially in COVID, for people, now working from home, is, let's just be honest, office hours have been way expanded beyond, whatever they were. So that's a thing. But so and every time I'm saying that is because, something else you're working on, now there's definitely going to be an encroachment upon your time. Now the line is blurred between what is family time and what is it not. I don't know anymore. But Talisha, I know you had something you want to say about it.
I've been a remote worker for 10 years. So yeah. I've worked from home for the majority of my career, specifically in digital healthcare. It's not a thing that I need to physically be in present. I mean, I'm always on the computer. I'm always in the back end looking at things. Once in a blue moon, I have to go interact with real people, but I see them. I see the people every day. So I think remote work has changed the way we look at things and allocate time. And the best employers do it with their sensibility of fix it where you fit in, like make sure it works for you.
Yeah,
And that
I agree.
both of my employers have had that kind of like, okay, what hours are you working? I was working in a very specific time zone. I lived in Hawaii, so there was no other time zone but that one. So, I'm always behind or ahead depending on where you are in the world. And so my timing was always really set to me. So I would get up, I'm already behind East Coast time, and I'm like trying to catch up. It's like, 12 o'clock there, it's 6 a.m. my time. So there was always this maneuverability, but that also brings with you the amount and volume of work wherever you are productive. Like some people are really great in the morning and some people aren't, and vice versa. So having that ability to kind of maneuver, especially when it was deliverable necessary, it wasn't really about the interfacing. It was like, can you get this done? When you have those kind of work products, I think that really engages your workforce to really give you your best. So again, that's where you can leverage some of this, where again, what are you doing? How does it work? If you're working on your hobby, does it make you feel better? Therefore, you bring your best to work and you give me, those great 8 hours. Bam, great. Do whatever you need to do. If you need to swim, bike, hike, do whatever before that you get to work and that makes you feel better, great. If you need to do it in the middle of the afternoon. So I think we're redefining work. And I think that structure of, I call it like the industry standard. The industry standard is going to change because we're not in factories anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Not meant to do that kind of work anymore. And so the fluidity will definitely need to be there. And again, we'll see companies and individual, I would say departments truly try to play with this to see what happens to get the most productivity. And again, this will also go into your compensation. Do you need to be compensated? Why most people work is because they're not making enough money at that one job. So now when they see that you're trying to make up that difference, it's like, okay, well, we now know why that is. Is it for the health insurance? Is it for the supplement certain aspects of it? So now it becomes incumbent on the institution that you're working for, that organization, to be like, oh, what benefits am I offering? So that if I want to curtail side hustling, I gotta come up with some big things to keep them all engaged all the time. So it's really that converse thing. We are in an employee centric place. If you get a place that says, I'll let you work whatever, wherever you can do it, those are benefits and perks that people never even thought of before. And for those individuals who truly needed them, if we had disabled individuals or people who had children or taking care of family members that needed that special thing, and now you're competing with other employers that give those options. And if you don't, they're like, no, that doesn't work for me. Because remember, this is at will employment. You got to give me something to work for you. We're no longer beholden to them. I need this job. You got to give it to me. You could work anywhere now. And that truly is, you can work anywhere now. So that opens it up to a whole different realm of selection. So now they have to compete. Employers have to compete, not just you for the job.
Okay,
I think employers and employees have to compete.
Everybody's in.
It's a great big competition. The other thing I think is, for some people, it may not be benefits. For some people, it may be schooling their kids. For some people, it may be, I don't want a boss breathing down my neck if I want to go to the grocery store at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, then, I'll be back for the Zoom call at 2 o'clock, right? Whatever it is.
I pick up my sick kid. Like I said, I could maneuver my whole schedule. Like my daughter's in gymnastics. I'm like, I got to pick her up. I got to take her to here. And they were like, cool, as long as you're back and do whatever. Yeah. And again, there was nobody here to clock me in, clock me out. And again, that flexibility is very important, and it's becoming very important. And I think employers understand that now. Specifically, if we have school that now has to be done virtually, that's something that's put upon these individuals. It's not a selection like, oh, you've chosen to homeschool your child. Right. Now we have this thing that is literally mandated to them. They have to make that concession. Yeah. It's really incumbent for them to keep their employees happy and to keep them is because this is something that they don't have any control over. And if, like I said, if they're looking for some other alternative and a company is saying, yeah, we allow you to do this and you can do it at between 7 and 8 at night and whatever that is, that becomes much more of a viability for the employee to be looking for those kind of benefits.
Like I just want to say what's interesting to me is to think, and obviously you've been working with people in that frame and you're completely acclimated to it. But it's interesting to see, and I'm talking about from employer standpoint, of those who are not as benevolent when it comes to their time and who aren't acclimated, and to kind of see what happens with them if they end up themselves, really feeling the effect, because they are much more rigid in their requirements for their employees, as far as their time and that sort of thing. So that's going to be interesting to see kind of how that plays out.
I think it have a ripple effect. If you don't comply, I think this is where I just read an interesting article about, again, women being the main caregivers losing their jobs because people were saying their children are in the background. I hear them, whatever. And it's like, okay, you should, that's going to happen because everybody's home. You have a whole house full of everybody. Yeah. But women are saying that there's 12 to 13% of women saying that their employer has made some negative comments about their children in the background. And then they were given notice and put on probation and all this other craziness for those kind of things. But I'm like, now, if you are purposely targeting those individuals, think of the lawsuits that come, because now, I'm saying, are men not having children in the background that you're yelling, So you got to be careful about how this will impact your workforce and the litigiousness that comes with you being so rigid. You may now find yourself litigating your rigidness. Because it's like, okay, are you really making us comply with something that really can't be mitigated? Or, those little things where, yes, you have to be here, you have to have your camera on, you have to do all these things. But if it's not possible, how are you opening yourself up to your workforce now revolting against you and really, literally filing claims that you're harassing them?
Yeah, see, there you go.
Well, let's move to the next article here. I rather enjoyed this one. So this is 3 concepts that define the future of work: data, decentralization, and automation. So this was an interesting article by Dr. Mark Van, I won't even try to say that last name there. But it's from October of last year. Okay, so the future of work is data-driven. I think we can all agree with that. So, of course, we know we're dealing with big data, especially in these ambiguous and uncertain times. Analytics enable organizations to sense opportunities using large amounts of structured and unstructured data, and applying it to advanced analytics enables organizations to understand their environment and seize opportunities, which enables them to remain competitive. The introduction of descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics in your work means that the traditional way of decision-making based on experience and expertise is exchanged for data-driven decision-making. The future of work, therefore, will result in flatter organizations where those employees facing the customer or those directly involved with building a product use data to optimize their decisions. This requires a change in company culture, as real-time insights from data require real-time action from employees and management. Fewer managers and more empowered employees will radically change your culture. I want to stop there. For those of us who those of us who have more than, 15 years in the workplace, I think that this paragraph here is hyper important if you are a middle manager. Because what this guy is saying, and I do agree with him, is the future of work as technology, big data changes, artificial intelligence he talks about further in here, blockchain he talks about. As these things take shape, middle managers are going to be needed less. And either you're going to be someone who is customer facing, or somebody who's putting product together, or someone who's making strategic decisions for the company to increase profitability or lower risk or lower liability, etc. So I just think that that's so important for us to think about, because some of us do have those middle management jobs. So the future of work is decentralized. Data will become the common denominator in the organization. Data can be easily shared with industry partners, resulting in numerous opportunities to increase efficiency within a supply chain and improve collaboration with industry partners. Therefore, the author believes that blockchain will be the golden standard for supply chains. The future of work will rely on a decentralized single source of truth when exchanging value amongst industry partners. In a decentralized system, data becomes immutable, verifiable, and traceable. This means that the provenance of either data or products will help the organization of tomorrow become more efficient and transparent. Organizations can create value by effortlessly collaborating in real time with a network of peer-to-peer actors. Thanks to blockchain, the future of work will be more efficient, transparent, and secure. Settlements of transactions will take hours instead of weeks. The cause of flawed products can be found in minutes instead of days, and your networks will become more secure and resilient to hackers. In addition, blockchain allows organizations to embed data governance directly within the network, bringing the code to the data. Laws and regulations can be programmed into code and stored on the blockchain so that they are enforced automatically. This will make governance easier. The ledger can act as legal evidence for data and increase the importance of data ownership, data transparency, and auditability. With the future of work, smart contracts will increasingly remove the need for human judgment and minimize the need for trust. I highlighted this in yellow. When multiple smart contracts are combined together with artificial intelligence and analytics, it becomes possible to automate decision-making capabilities altogether. That's controversial for me, but this will result in a completely new paradigm of organizing activity and can result in new organizational designs that are completely run by computer code, so-called decentralized autonomous organizations. The future of work might very well be without employees. Actually, this is that last sentence is controversial to me too. What concerned me about this section is whenever you're talking about making it possible for a computer to make a lot of the decisions, if not all of the decisions, we always have to look at how things are coded. And with our ethnicity, things are rarely coded to benefit us. I had a huge problem with that sentence because of that. I'm interested in hearing what Talisha has to say. I think I had more with this article, but I want to stop right there and get people's thoughts on that because that was the first thing that popped in my head when I read that.
That's where that you can't replace, we can't just digitize what's already there. So we need to come up with, first and foremost, new rules of engagement with regard to the way the protocols work. Like, what information are we capturing? Why are we capturing that? Is that the correct data that we absolutely need? Because again, we're not doing a 1-to-1 ratio. And the incumbent upon us to be there when those decisions are being made to say, yep, that's old data. That's really not reliable. We do need to have an updated source, or yep, that needs to not be included. So again, from an HR standpoint, most people are looking at the resume and trying to do blind resumes now. That's even being done even before the, trying to digitize it. But to remove certain characteristics to make sure that it's a viable, that somebody is really truly not looking at the name, looking at the sex, looking at the race. They're trying to give it as much as possible as a good pass, without having those identifiers in there. And that too will be something that code will have to incorporate as well. That code needs to be able to not have biases, inherent biases placed in it as well. And the only way to do that is to have somebody sitting there saying, that doesn't work for me. As soon as that line.
And that's my problem, is that we've talked about how AI has been used. For example, the self-driving cars, I don't know why after all of this time, we're still having the conversation of someone's putting out a self-driving car that's hitting Black people because they don't read the Black person because there were no Black people seated at the table, much less in the alpha and beta test. I mean, that's where I get nervous about stuff like this, because we always seem to be coming up the rear. And we always try to tell people, hey, we need to be at the tables. But I don't know. I mean,
Well, Eric Guthrie has a good point about the supplier diversity.
hey, Eric, good to see you.
This is where we have to engage in a different manner, and where certain things become incumbent to incorporate, because now you have to think about that the minute that you're building these structures. How do they work is going to be that question. And the immediacy of, does it work for everybody? Because you know that your customer base is everybody. You're going to have to really do that testing. You just can't put something out there. And I think what happens is we've just kind of let it go. Things are just really, first to market is really important. But now it's not only first to market, is adaptability and correctness. We're going to have to now make that into our coding procedures, things that now have to be, can't have those, what I consider inherent flaws. Like, yeah, if you don't see a Black person, that's an inherent flaw. If you instantly are, taking those aggregates out of the system, and you're always saying no to that, you have a problem. And again, that comes not only in the coding, but also in the testing, also in the business analysis and the functional specs. Everybody has to have a piece of work to go in there. And so I do think that diversification is very necessary, and will become a thing in progress, in the sense that these companies are going to have to work through, and not just have a myopic aspect of, oh, this code is really cool. That's no longer effective now at this point.
Well, I mean, I see that as being a true career path for people as well. I mean, you probably can make millions of dollars a year being the tech beta testing diversity, person that makes sure that every scenario with at least different ethnicities of people is taken care of, just like people have chief diversity officers now. 30 years ago, nobody had a chief diversity officer. Now, all the major companies have one. Maybe this is the next line of individuals that are coming through with these tech companies, especially with AI. Go ahead, Eric.
When I was reading that, and yes, Sheree, I'm like you, that sentence definitely gave me pause, because I'm always thinking about us, always thinking about our community, and how these technological advancements are going to affect us first. I will say that, one of the things, and that article was October 2019. So, it's prior to 2020, the things that we had happen. And I think we've highlighted it here, like we've talked about it on Blockchain Chat before, where eventually the global supply chain, we will definitely see more automation happen there, more IoT devices implemented into the global supply chain. When we look and we see the effects of, a store running out of toilet paper, entire region being out of a certain item, and it's, somewhere else, and it's just sitting in some warehouse somewhere, and you're like, well, how did that happen? And that sort of thing. So I think we will see that. One of the things that was definitely making me think about this was, I was really starting to think about, man, and looking at the effect of what we've had happen with this virus, it wouldn't shock me if Amazon doesn't really roll this out into one of their, one of their warehouses, where, because we read the stories of Amazon employees of, having literally no time to use the bathroom, and having to get product from one side to the other in order to meet the demand, the consumer demand that Talisha has talked about, that rises up, where we expect a product to arrive at us at a certain period of time. So understand, the human beings are the ones making that possible and having to do that. But it wouldn't surprise me, especially someone like a Jeff Bezos, that would say, hey, you know what, we're going to completely automate this entire, this
Oh,
entire
what's going to happen? Yeah.
Yes.
They call it a dark warehouse. So that's actually in the third article that I have, which we probably won't get to tonight, but it's called a dark warehouse, where literally the robots are able to work 24/7 and there are no humans in there. Or you may have one human as the the overseer of the robots. But it also goes back to what Dr. George Frazier told you and Dr. Keisha, shout out to the 10K Project. He said, don't just think about building the robots, think about repairing them as well. Somebody's going to have to repair that. Somebody's going to have to do this diversity, technology, beta testing,
I'm saying, what about protocols? I'm saying
Mhm.
there's chips and things like that. That's where I said we can niche market. You
Mhm.
have the thing that needs to be incorporated in some of these aspects. So again, you have these great robots, but what if you can sync them to something else, or have something, again, ancillary to the robot that pulls different data that you need, customer data, just different things can happen. And that's a very niche market. And that's where the businesses that we need to create, so that we are a part. We're not asking them to think of us in the back end. We are just like, we're a supplier, we're a vendor, and we're like, oh, I have the product that you need. Let me sell it to you.
Right, absolutely. So this is where people start, like these kinds of conversations is where multi-million dollar, I'm telling you, a couple of the things we talked about tonight, minimum $10 million a year businesses, minimum.
Mm-hmm.
If you know the right people, if you network in the right places, and if you put together a blog or a YouTube channel or something like that, and you start getting the word out about it, people will start to find you. You'll be asked to speak all over the world. You'll be consulting with Fortune 500 companies. You can make millions of dollars a year because it's a huge problem. And I think with the civil unrest, the one thing that 2020 has brought out is the disparity to such a point where, for once, I think companies are taking a good look and saying, okay, what can we do? What are some of the things that we are missing? And, now's the time to take advantage of it. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
But what's interesting about that, just when you bring up that whole issue of dark warehouses,
Sure.
it's kind of funny because there's always like this boomerang effect. And we see how companies, many corporations, took notice of the disparities. But then there's a part of me sometimes that sits in the back of my mind of going, yeah, but what if eventually they say, you know what, I'll tell you how we're going to deal with this. We're not going to worry about any color. It's just going to be metal. and they do go and they do it like that. And I always wonder about that becomes their own little way of circumventing this issue in dealing with it. So I don't know. I could be wrong, but
well, right now the only color is green. So yeah. So now
I'm going to say, I think this is where tech gets a bad rap. It can't just be all tech all day. That it's just not, I always say that MTV all day. It's just not possible, because there are people. There needs to be a human interaction, and more importantly, the consumer doesn't always want to deal with that. So again, from an end perspective, we're backing up from the end user going, yes, they may want a product very quickly. Maybe that's where we have those little distributed areas where it's all that, but you still have customer service. You still have the person who sells it. Like, there's so many other things that really need to be kept up, and marketing is never going to be done in that sense of the thing that really draws people are still human connections. So I think some of the underlying, what I consider that industrial aspect, where we were trained to do, to be in school, to be able to put the widget together, that's no longer a part. So that's the part that the automated things are going to come to replace, are those things that we were taught to do that are no longer, that we now have taught that to do. And that's what I'm saying. Anything that you can teach a thing that requires very, very minimal steps, that's going to be incorporated into that. So we have to be free thinkers, and that's where the creativity is. How to do it better, smarter, faster, cheaper. How does we get these people engaged to buy more, to upsell? The computer can't tell you that. They could just tell you, yep, they bought 20% more.
True.
Okay, and say then it's incumbent on you as that person to say, well, I noticed this trend, to read the data, because the data, again, is just all these bits and parts. You need to have somebody that says, okay, I can see a pattern here. I can see, and then we're moving this product better than we're moving it here. Those are the people that are going to have jobs. The people who can build that, to tell the engineers, okay, we need a smart system. We need it smarter. The business analysts, the functional specs people, all those people come together in a room. those are all people to tell the automated thing what to do. And that's going to change very quickly. We're not going to see these 30, 40-year robots. They're going to have to change very swiftly. So iteration after iteration, just think how quickly your phone changes, how quickly you get updates for your PC, because things need to be updated. Things break all the time. There's little holes, there's little things that could work even better. All of that is requiring a whole bunch of people to make that one thing work. So there's never not people, but it's the deployment of how those people work and what skill set those people have that are really important.
Felicia, see, everything you said is what I agree with. See, it's a lot of these AI pinheads that I'm arguing with who are acting like AI is just going to completely take over, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, y'all. First of all, knowing I've studied the human brain and how it works in everything, and how your subconscious mind can just have billions and billions of objects there, and then how you're sleeping and neural patterns are linking together and how that all works. I'm like, listen, guys, I'm way too crazy for AI to it can't outthink me. Like, there's no way. But and that's kind of the point that, when you start thinking about human creativity itself is to me, and I'm just saying this because like I said, a lot of the AI enthusiasts believe that AIs will just be ruling the world and we'll just be at their beck and call. And I'm just like, it's just not. It just doesn't work that way,
I'm never going to say nothing's not impossible, but I'm simply saying that you have to build it.
Well, yeah, that goes back to what I was saying too. Yeah. I mean, even if you think about like the Jetsons and the robot that was the housekeeper, like the robot still needed directives, right?
There's always, I'm saying, if you have code has to be written, and even with self-coding entities, that still is requiring a whole lot of computing for an entity of itself to write some own code. That's really, really a challenge right now.
And it is a challenge, yeah. I think that people try to oversimplify it, which is why that article, that section that I put in yellow, I'm like, I don't know. So I mean, I think that tonight's conversation though was great with regard to the future of work. We didn't have a chance to go over the article about the gig economy, but a lot of it was the same types of things, and also added in the use of international payments, which of course we know blockchain is really affecting that. But I think tonight is just very practical in terms of not just us, but our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids. Like, how do you prepare them for a future of jobs that don't even exist? May not even exist.
Introduction. I think these are the kinds of conversations. Like, my daughter's first job is playing a video game. She's an affiliate to Twitch. So all she does is stream all day, and she gets paid to do that and to interface. And this is, again, one of those things, even though it's a video game, the highest value that they get is when they interact with each other. They love to interact with each other. That's the whole point. If you don't have enough subscribers, no one comes to your channel. So the more conversation you have with real live human beings, it's like the bomb. Everybody was like, oh, do this. So there's all that element there is really important, but there's a structure to that to make her see that it's the possibility of how her computer, how the things that she uses every day are also monetizable. Like, that's what she has to understand. Like, this is an asset. Yes, it's yours. It's great. But how do you make money from it? There's a setup there in the mindset, just a little shift to be like, oh, you don't have to work at McDonald's, and there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, but you have a device in your house that you can leverage. How do you do that? And she found a way to do that. That's where you have to, you kind of go, and like, she sells her little hacks now. So she has them up on her board. People want her pins. And so she can charge her pins. Like, those are things that are just, it's a concept. And we have to introduce our children or just individuals to a concept that may be unfamiliar to them. And that's what we have to do. Even the gig economy is very specific. You never think that you could sell your skill. You never think that you could, like, oh, I could just make an ebook. It's like, yeah, you can make an ebook, and that's what you know. And it's not anything new. It's just, you have to package it. We have to start thinking outside of the box of that purview of like, just do these things. You can do a whole host of things. And I think this is why it's important to be in these groups, because people are triggered by, oh, I didn't know how to do that. I'm like, yeah, there's an ebook writer, right? Do something in Word and put it in this program, and boom, you have an ebook, and then put it on Amazon, and you could have passive income.
Yeah.
It sounds simple, and it is simple. We just have to start having those conversations.
We do. It's conversation plus action.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of different things tonight. I think, you know, I laid out a 10 to $50 million a year business for somebody, for the right somebody, of a group of people who want to do it. You know, this is the future. So now we're looking at 3 to 10 years out. What are going to be those things that we can do? And also the stuff we talked about tonight require very little money to get started. It just requires time and determination, and saying, you know what, I'm going to be a thought leader in this. And if you're the only person with something that is hot, you know, people are going to come to you and going to want your services, because I haven't heard anybody, and I know Talisha gets around more than I do. I haven't heard anybody talk about, these are the problems, and we're the ones who can help solve these problems within the blockchain AI data space. So that is it. It is 8:30 officially, so we are going to log off. So again, if you're not a member of Black Blockchain Consultants and we said something tonight that you like, wait until you come into the inner circle. We say a whole lot more. So you can come to Black Blockchain Consultants to become a member, blackblockchainconsultants.com. So that is it. And next week, Dr. Keisha has a guest who's coming in. So we're looking forward to that. We'll send everyone the information with regards to Odom, our guest who's coming in.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Night, everybody. Enjoy.